Hi there, I'm Graham Lewis, and in this short video we're going to solve this order of operations problem and hopefully learn some skills. So before we start solving this, let's just talk about a few things, because there's a few tricky features here. Firstly, we've got the cube root of -8 we need to sort out, then what's 6 to the power 0, and then what's the 4th root of 16. So let's have just a look at those three things before we then go ahead. So when we're thinking of the cube root of -8, remember what we're thinking of is a number times by itself has to equal -8. Can you think of one? You might think 2, but 2 times 2 times 2 is +8. So let's try -2. -2 times -2 times -2 is indeed -8, because a negative times a negative is a positive, and then multiplied by another negative makes a negative. So the answer of the cube root of -8 is -2. Now let's think about 6 to the power 0. Now I explained this in another video, so you might want to check out my video on powers of 0, but remember, anything to the power 0 is always 1, as long as it's not 0 to the power 0. So 0 to the power 0 is undefined, but anything to the power 0 is 1. Now let's think about the 4th root of 16. Well, that's similar to the cube root of -8, except this time I'm thinking about a number times by itself 4 times, because it's the 4th root. And the answer is, of course, 2. Because 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So the 4th root of 16 is 2, because 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 16. Okay, so hopefully we've got those sorted, and now we can go ahead and solve this. Like in my other two videos on order of operations, I like to think of this as a top question and a bottom question, and I'll develop them both as I go along as well as possible, going nice and slowly. So, strictly speaking, we should do the multiplication on top first, but I know I can do the cube root of -8 as well at the same time. It's not going to cause any problem. So I'm going to write -2, and then I'm going to look at this multiplication. But I can't do the multiplication yet, because the order of operations rule says I need to sort out those exponents. So I need to do 3 squared, which is 9, and 6 to the power 0, which is 1. And that would be my first line. Divided by, going down the page, because that's good convention. 4th root of 16 we've discussed, that's 2. The square root of 25, hopefully everyone's okay that that's a 5. Divided by a half squared. Let's have a think about a half squared. We probably should have talked about that. So a half squared is a half times a half, and a half times a half is a quarter, either by following the rule that you multiply the 1 by 1 and the 2 by 2, or think of a pizza. If you've got half of a pizza and then you've got half of the pizza, you've got a quarter of a pizza. So here's my pizza, there's half of the pizza, so on the right hand side, and if I half my half, I end up with a quarter of the pizza. So there we have, that's equal to quarter. So now we've gone from the first line to the second line. And remember, you may show more working, that's fine. Everyone has their own style, and you can just check if you do it a different way that you get the same answer at the end as me. So now we've got the top line, and we have to use order of operations, so we need to do the multiplication first. Don't do -2 minus 9, you'll get it wrong. Do 9 times 1. So 9 times 1 is a 9. On the bottom I have to do this tricky division first here. So don't forget that we need to do that division first. So let's do that now. So 5 divided by a quarter. Different ways to do this. I'll just do a bit on the side again. 5 divided by a quarter. One way is to think about how many times does a quarter go into 1? How many quarters are there in a whole one? Well, there are 4. So if I've got how many quarters in 5, the answer is 5 times 4 is 20. The other way of thinking about it is 5 divided by a quarter is the same as 5 multiplied by 4 over 1, which is the same answer, 20. So either way of thinking about it. So on the bottom, I've got a 2 minus my 20. Oops, sorry, just delete that. Okay, so let's see where this has led us. So I've got -2 minus 9, which is -11. And 2 minus 20, which is -18. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and I end up with the answer 11/18. It's not a very nice answer, but it's good to realise that sometimes we don't get nice answers. So try it yourself. Remember, you learn mathematics by doing it, not just by watching and understanding. So try it yourself. Check you get 11/18. Your working doesn't have to be exactly the same as mine, but remember my tips here. If I just grab my highlighter pen, do consider going down the page rather than across, because you can see that the cube root of -8 changes nicely to -2. The fourth root of -16 changes nicely to a 2, and so on. So try to go down the page, treat it as one whole fraction, working on the top first, the bottom, until you've got them nicely simplified. If you like this video, you could try watching some of my other Bedmas videos. I've got 2 other tricky Bedmas problems. Thank you very much.